Okay, I think we'll begin, Ayesha. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Abduroaf. Thank you for joining our webinar on child maintenance difficulties, problems that people may face when dealing with child maintenance matters in South Africa. With me, I have my co-panelist, Ms. Ayesha Karim. She is an attorney, and she will introduce herself with a bit more details. But on myself, I practice as an advocate in the Western Cape, and I specialize in family law matters. Ayesha, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ayesha Karim. I practice in Durban. My firm specializes in family law. We also deal with matters in Johannesburg and Cape Town. And maintenance is just one of the many, many areas of family law which we specialize in. And yeah, we look forward to giving you some valuable information this morning.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ayesha. So to all the viewers, all the participants, we plan on obviously having more of these type of videos. This video is only limited to about 30 minutes. So Ayesha will basically start off with explaining on the process on how to apply for child maintenance. Then we'll deal with the second aspect regarding problems. What do you do if somebody does not pay child maintenance in terms of the court order? And then we'll deal with the issue concerning interprovincial maintenance applications. So Ayesha, over to you. Can you just explain to the viewers, how do we apply for child maintenance? What do you do?
Okay. So I think when we received the questions from the various participants, I was quite shocked at the number of people that asked the question, how do I apply for maintenance? I was under the impression that this is common knowledge, but it seems to me that it's not. And the question, how do I apply for maintenance, has various aspects to it. So I'd like to, if you would bear with me, I'd like to go through those in a bit of detail because I feel it's important, especially for the foundation of this webinar today. It's important for us to get our basics right. And the basics is, what is child maintenance? How do I apply for it, right? So in South Africa, we have the maintenance court, of course, where you can approach and apply for maintenance. You can also approach the high court. Our maintenance courts and our high courts have what we call concurrent jurisdiction, meaning the choice is yours. You can choose whether you would like to run your matter through the high court or whether you would like to approach your local magistrate's court. Now, if you would like to know which court you would approach, it would be the court where the child resides at. So for example, if your child resides from KZN region, you and child reside in the Musgrave area, then you would approach the Durban Maintenance Court. And how do I apply for maintenance? It's quite a simple procedure, if I can say that. I say simple and then my clients come to me and say, it's not simple, it's extremely complex. So there is a maintenance application form, which is available online. It's available at your local magistrate's court, where it's a document. It's called the maintenance application form. You will fill out details on that form, details of yourself, because if you're the parent who is applying for maintenance on behalf of your minor child or children, we would need your details. The court would need, of course, the minor child's details, so their birth certificates, etc. And then the most important part, and this is how a maintenance application is founded, is the costs relating to the minor child. So this is vitally important, and I think a lot of people in general don't keep documented proof of what it actually costs. So when you go to the grocery store and you purchase items for the minor child, you don't keep your receipts, right? But for a maintenance application, that would be required. We are required to keep the receipts. Those receipts are required. You need to submit that with your application forms. You obviously then fill out the forms according to what, and there's you'll find on the form itself, it will give you various items, and you can then allocate a certain amount for those items. You can claim for domestic help, you can claim for groceries, rental, electricity. These are just to mention a few. And of course, you need to, in that application form itself, as the applicant, you need to also say, what are my expenses? Because, we need to, on the application form itself, there's going to be a part where you're going to say, what did these children cost? But at the same time, we can't just look at your salary and your income and say, okay, this is what they cost you. We need to also establish what are your commitments. Do you have a vehicle that you're driving? Is that vehicle used for the children? You know, are you transporting them to and from schools or to wherever they need to be? So in a nutshell, that's how you apply for the maintenance. Once you've filled out those forms with all of the supporting documents, you then, as well as, so you'll need your proof of income, your bank statements. This is to prove what you're earning. And then you take that down to maintenance court. And I'm only talking about maintenance court here. I'm not referring to anything in the high court. I'm talking about maintenance court. This is a self-help court, which you can do on your own. You don't require the assistance of an attorney. You can take those documents down to the maintenance court. They will issue the documents for you. They will give you a date, and then that document gets served on your ex-spouse or the father of the children or the mother of the children, depending on who the application is being brought against. And then you'll appear in court, and of course there is the process involved to establish what is the income of both parents, and then that is weighed up against what is the expenses, the reasonable expenses of the minor child or children. I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that, Mohammed. I know that was quite a mouthful, but if you would like to add anything to the application process itself.
Ayesha, I might want to add over here, and you might agree with me, will agree with me, is that many people, when they apply for child maintenance, they like to, you know, pollute or put in big amounts. So for argument's sake, the mother might be earning, for argument's sake, 1,000 Rand per month. I'm using round figures over here. But you see the expenses for the month is 10,000 Rand. That doesn't make logical sense, because how did you survive for the last, you know, 5 years or so? So what I would like to add over here is many people, they forget that ultimately that amount will be tested. So should the trial happen, or should the evidence have to be presented, and it comes about that you actually lied in application, that will obviously be used against you. And the second point which I want to bring about is that many people believe that, you know, although I'm claiming child maintenance for my child, the father has an obligation to support me as well. That is not the case, unless a court, you know, made an order regarding, you know, personal maintenance. But if that is not the case, your amount should specifically be for your child, and the father or the other parent's obligation is to maintain the child and not you. That's all that I have to comment at this specific point. So Ayesha,
yes, and then just to expand on that, yes, so I want to expand on that point. As well, I think the issue of child maintenance is, and I think there's a lot of misconception regarding this, the child maintenance application is actually brought on behalf of the child. So it's not the other parent that is bringing the application for themselves. You know, you're bringing the application on behalf of the child because the child is the person that requires the maintenance. And I think there's a lot of misconception, I think, in the public arena, where people think, oh, the maintenance is for her because she needs help to, no, it's not actually that. The maintenance is in fact for the minor child. And the one parent is bringing it on their behalf because they're a minor, of course, and they can't bring the application on their own, in their own capacity. That's all I wanted to add in there.
Yes, and Ayesha, my attitude regarding child maintenance applications, and I've been dealing with this for many years, and yourself as well. In order for you to be successful in this application, you need to also be proactive. You can't leave everything up to the court. For the court now, what many parents do is they say, maintenance officer, I need 1,000 and maintenance for argument's sake, and it's now the maintenance court's hand. You need to actively, you know, get your mathematics in order, as you said now, get your receipts in order, find out where the father is working, get information, speak to his family. If the father is saying he's self-supporting and that he cannot afford the specific maintenance, then speak to his people, his friends, who he works with. Determine from them, is he really not earning as much money as he's saying he's earning? So what my experience in the past is that although the parties employ legal practitioners to assist them, attorneys and advocates, the more successful matters are those specific matters where the parties themselves take the case as their own case and put a big amount of effort into the case.
Yes, yeah, 100% agree with you on that, in that regard, yeah.
So Ayesha, maybe moving to the second question of which has been generally posed. If the mother or the father says, I have a maintenance order in place, whereby the other parent has to pay me amount of, for argument's sake, 1,000 Rand, including school fees and extramural expenses, etc. I have the order is on my desk, but the father or the other party does not pay the child maintenance. What happens then? Can you explain to the viewers, please?
So there's various options available, and we'll find these options. So just for the benefit of the listeners, this entire process that we are referring to is actually governed by the Maintenance Act. So within the Act itself, we find that there's various recourse available in the event of default. So those of you may or may not know, defaulting on a court order may carry criminal sanctions. So you can't default on a court order without there being some form of criminal sanctions there. If you default your salary, if you're working, one of the options available to the participants is that your salary can be attached via garnishee order. And the third, obviously, is that you could have part of or some of your assets attached. So if you're not paying maintenance, but you're living in a massively beautiful home and you're driving expensive vehicles and you say, oh, well, due to COVID, my life has now come to a staggering halt and my company is not making any money, that's fine in itself, but the court will also, and this is only if you have a maintenance order in place, the court will also look at what are the assets that you are holding. Do you have funds available? Do you have monies in savings? And most importantly, and I think more often than not, people think that their assets are safe. Unfortunately, in the circumstances of a court order, and most especially when it comes to maintenance, if you're not paying maintenance, your assets would then be able to be sold in execution and used to pay your arrears maintenance. And there's even an option, if you're not working, that some of the monies can be allocated for future maintenance, if you show no indication of finding employment or getting employment in the near future.
Okay. So Ayesha, am I correct? Right, and the law has developed to a certain point. If the parents cannot afford to pay child maintenance for whatever purposes, for whatever reasons, apologize, they can approach the paternal grandparents or the maternal grandparents for that case. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of the maintenance court, the Maintenance Act, and clients always get very upset with me when I mention this. Listen, we don't make the law. So counsel and I, we're just the messengers in this particular circumstance. People get very upset with me. So if for example, and I'm using this as an example, if dad, for example, is unemployed and he cannot afford to pay you, and there's no assets, there's nothing, there's no recourse available through dad, you as the parent, as the other parent, can actually bring a maintenance application against the paternal grandparents, so the father's parents, and yes, you can claim maintenance against them, provided that they are working and they have some form of income or assets which which could be used for maintenance of the minor child. So it's quite a serious maintenance. Is quite, I would say, I'm not sure if you'd agree with me, maintenance is much more serious, I think, than most people think it is, and it is strongly protected in the Maintenance Act. It's just about the enforcement and the public having the knowledge to proceed with action in terms of the Maintenance Act. I'm not sure what you want to add in that respect, but yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, many people they post on our blog and ask the question: is it okay if I do not pay child support or child maintenance? Then I ask them the question: is it okay if a child does not eat? Or does not have clothes on their bodies? Because if you are not paying child support or child maintenance, basically you are saying, I do not want to feed this child. And how can you allow that scenario to ever happen? The child is little, he or she cannot go work, and you are an adult, you are the parent, you made this child. So maintenance matters are extremely serious, and the courts are obviously not very lenient when it comes to non-compliance with maintenance orders. On that specific point, and I advise all parents, if there is a maintenance order in place and the other party is not complying with the specific order, immediately approach a maintenance court and try to enforce order.
Yes. Yes, and okay, and then I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, because obviously I represent a lot of dads and a lot of mums across South Africa. And the one thing I do want to say is this: I have a lot of dads who during COVID have legitimately lost employment. So they legitimately do not have the funds to pay. And South Africa, within the South African economy, sometimes there is genuinely that there are no assets, that they are living on the borderlines of poverty, and they just cannot afford to pay. And in that respect, and if the respondent in the matter means that the maintenance order is against you, and you cannot pay maintenance, you need to be warned that you cannot just decide, all right, I'm not going to pay maintenance and there's no order in place and that's fine. No, you've got to, as well, just like the applicant followed the procedure to have the application in place, you then need to approach the maintenance court for an application for variation, or whatever the case may be, to say I'm no longer earning X amount of money, I've been retrenched, or alternatively that I can only afford a lesser amount because circumstances have changed due to COVID or whatever it is. But I think, and I must stress this point, that both the applicant in the maintenance application as well as the respondent must act in good faith. Don't come and lie and use COVID as an excuse, but most certainly if there really is a legitimate reason as to why the amount for maintenance cannot be paid, please approach the court. Don't make decisions on your own, because the court order will stand. It's a legal document, and there's recourse then available to the applicant in that respect, and you want to avoid a very, very messy legal battle going forward.
Okay. Ayesha, I see there's a lot of questions being posed, and I think we'll have a few minutes later on to answer some of them. But before we deal with that, I think the last question which we prepared to answer at this webinar is, what does a parent do if the mother lives in Cape Town and the father lives in Johannesburg, for argument's sake, or vice versa? How do you apply for maintenance? Is it possible? What do you do?
Yes, yeah, so it's absolutely possible. I actually dealing with quite a number of those currently. So the maintenance application, like I've been talking, will be brought in the jurisdiction of where the child resides. So if the child is residing in Durban, for example, the application itself will be brought in the Durban Maintenance Court, and then dad would need to be served wherever he is. So whichever police station or sheriff's offices falls under his jurisdiction, the documents would then need to be sent to that sheriff or police station, and they would then need to serve that on dad, and dad would need to appear in the court which has jurisdiction of the matter. So it will be up to him to come to court on the particular day at the particular court. So it's completely possible. It doesn't matter where dad is living. The matter can proceed successfully.
Okay, so basically the father will have to go wherever the child and the mother is.
Yes, that's
okay. So the father, and obviously we can deal with another webinar regarding the issue concerning international maintenance, whereby the father lives in Cape Town and the mother lives in America, for argument's sake, or vice versa. But that's something to look in as well. Ayesha, before I go to the question which the viewers has posed, I got one question for you. The time period for maintenance matter to be finalized from the time they go to the maintenance court and lodge the application until ultimately they get the order. How long does that take usually?
Well, I think that depends widely on the court that you're at. In Durban, we have a very strict policy in place. It's part of they have a system in place. The matter doesn't get adjourned too much. What I tell clients is when you approach the maintenance court, and a lot of people are not aware of this. So you approach the maintenance court, you get your date, you come to court. On the day itself, and a lot of people don't anticipate this, but the matter comes to court and he comes for it, right? And then they want to adjourn the matter because it's the amount of maintenance is not reasonable, it's not, can't be justified. What I tell my clients is that's okay. You are entitled to ask for interim maintenance and for the matter to then take its course and proceed. People think that, oh, well, then I'm just stuck because now we're going to argue and we're going to fight and the matter is going to go to trial and to argument. They don't realize that it is within your rights to say, okay, Dad, what can you afford right now? And without prejudice, we're going to accept that as an interim order, but our matter will still proceed and we will then still ask for maintenance, which we believe is so. Asking how long is a string? I think each court is different, and with COVID restrictions, hesitant to say it, but there are a certain amount of delays that's just inevitable due to sanitization of the courts. A certain maintenance officers from time to time have tested positive, a shortage of staffs in court. So there's a lot to consider in the time frame of getting the maintenance in place. I'm not sure if you can elaborate for us the procedures in Cape Town, if it's any different. I know each court has its own procedures in that regard.
Yes, Ayesha, I'm glad I asked you that question to answer, because many people ask me the same question, and the answer is, how long is the sitting? It depends on a lot of variables. And with COVID-19 and with the various courts operating differently, I must say, I also do not know the exact answer. And because there are so many magistrates courts, they all got their own procedures. And on the morning when you might appear in the court, the magistrate might be off ill, or the magistrate might say, on today, I'm dealing with matters that are more urgent than others. So here or there. But I would say on average, from the date a party actually appears in the maintenance court for the first time to lodge the application until their first appearance is about 2 to 3 months, give and take. Sometimes sooner, but it's not very short. The period is quite long. Right. Ayesha, and also just to put in something into the mix over here, some tricks some parents or fathers play is to delay the matter. They say they're not the father and they would like to have a paternity test done, and that also obviously delays the matter greatly, because it cannot proceed because there's an issue concerning paternity. Do you want to say something about that?
Well, I think the question came up is, what do we do when the dad is disputing paternity? Well, it's not uncommon. And what can actually be done is the courts themselves can order a paternity test to confirm that he is, in fact, the father of the child, and the matter can then proceed from there. So, there is, and I would just urge, those that suddenly come out and say, I'm not the dad, after years of raising the child, suddenly now you're not the dad. I would urge you against that, because that kind of delay really, and I think, and the point that I want to stress on here is that, once again, maintenance is for the minor child. So the only person that is really getting harmed by your delay or getting harmed by the matter being dragged on is the minor child. So I don't think any parents willingly would want to hurt or harm their child. At least I don't want to believe that. And I would urge the public, we must always act in the best interest of especially the minor child. And it's our duty as parents and as the public to ensure that maintenance, is encouraged. So within our own communities, we must encourage, our friends, our families to pay their maintenance and do what is in the best interest of children.
Ayesha, thank you for that. Ayesha, we have a few questions, but I'll also ask the question over the first question in front of me. And if the father stays at home purposely and not to pay child support, so basically what I would presume that the question is asking over here is, he doesn't want to pay and he stays at home. He can get a job, but he doesn't want to go work. What would you advise people such a scenario?
That's a difficult one, because that does happen, where people just choose to stay at home. I think where I've seen a great amount of success is then we then start looking. We have to be a little bit creative, right? If he is not working, then we ask for bank statements. Well, then how are you paying your rent? How are you buying groceries? What are you doing? And more often than not, I've found that the answer lies in the parents. And the great thing about that is that if his parents are supporting him and his parents are the ones that are aiding this bad behavior, then you can just bring an application against them for maintenance. So, you're going to have to be a bit strategic, and unfortunately, people don't usually like that kind of answer. And let me tell you, bringing an application against anyone's parent quickly resolves the issue of them choosing to stay at home deliberately to avoid paying maintenance. That's my opinion. You're welcome to add to that, but that's my take on it.
No, I agree with you 100%. And also, what sometimes also happens is I'm using the father example here, and some people might be offended by that, but I'm just using that for now. The father, he remarried and he has a wife, etc., and he's now saying, I can't support my child with my previous relationship, because I have now a new relationship, I have new kids, I have a new wife, and I'm earning too little money. Some people come with those type of arguments, but at the end of the day, the court will also have to look at the matter holistically, and you can't come with an argument. You can't prefer one child over another child. Am I right on that?
Absolutely, 100%. The children can't be, and also you can't then use that as an excuse and say, well, I'm married now and I've got a child, and so we just forget about the my other child. And also, again, once people, and I think the reality of it is that once people do get remarried and they start having perhaps children born of the second marriage, of course, the courts do need to consider the fact that there are children, but one child cannot be, attending private schools and, living in the laps of luxury while the other one, is struggling to get by and doesn't have food on the table. So a certain amount of fairness has to be applied, and reasonableness. If you have more than one child, or there's more than one child that you are responsible for, then you're going to have to be fair in your finances and how those children are taken care of. You can't have one in a school that's 20,000 a month, and the other one, well, we'll just sort of put you in a government school that's free, so that we don't have to pay the school fees. So it's about reasonableness and fairness between the children.
No, thank you for that. Ayesha, I'm just putting one span in the wheel over here, and this is a question I get a lot. And I always find it difficult to answer this question because it depends on a lot of other circumstances. The one of paying child support for a person over the age of 18 years old. So the child is still living with a mother, and the father also living with one parent, and is still at high school, matric, or still at university. The question is, what do you do under those circumstances? Does the child apply himself, or can the mother still apply on behalf of the child?
Okay, so when it comes to an adult, so maintenance is payable, and because there's a few aspects of this I want to answer, right? So maintenance is payable until the child turns 18, or until they are self-sufficient. Now, and this is the important bit for those of you that will be now from this webinar going forward and making maintenance applications. Please ensure that your maintenance order states until the child is self-sufficient. Because what I found more often than not in my practice is I have, and I'm going to call them because they're still babies. As far as I'm concerned, if you're a 17-year-old and you're entering university and you're turning 18, you're still a kid. I was still a kid at 18. My parents paid my bills for me. So what I would firstly say is that ensure that your court order is in place, that it states until the child is self-sufficient. Now, what does that mean? People may say, what is self-sufficient? Self-sufficient means that the maintenance will continue to be payable until the child is basically working and taking care of themselves, so that you can still get maintenance for that child until they've completed their university at the very least, or until they're working. Okay, so that's the one part of it. The second part of it is, what do we do if we've missed that trick? So, the court order didn't say that, or I didn't have maintenance, or I didn't have a maintenance order in place at the time. What do I do? So if you're an adult, but you're still dependent on your parents, right? So you're 18, you're attending university, you need to study. You can then bring a maintenance application against your parents, but in your own capacity. So this takes us back to what I said at the beginning, that maintenance is not actually for the parent who's bringing the maintenance application. It is on behalf of the child. And the reason the parent is bringing it on their behalf is because they don't have capacity. Now, once you become 18, you do have legal capacity, and then you would have to bring that application on your own behalf. So you do exactly what I said at the beginning about the forms and the receipts and proving all of those expenses, but you would do it yourself. So your mom wouldn't be helping you do it. You would approach the court. You would go and file those documents. And there again, the court will then look at mom and dad, because they both would be responsible for you, and see what each party is earning, what's their financial status, and then what is your expenses, and how should monies be allocated to you.
No, thank you, Ayesha. So Aldous, I'm seeing quite a few questions from the listeners over here, where they posing the question, what happens if there is a maintenance order in place, but it's not enough? How do you increase the current maintenance order? So I'll just put in a spanner or something, my addition to it is, basically you'll have to apply to the court, and the court will have to now determine is there a basis for it. So one basis for argument's sake could be that the child is costing more money, or one parent earns more money, or one parent earns less money. You want to comment on that?
Yes. So again, I think COVID has brought about this complication, is that, again, like dads have lost income, so have moms. So now we're sitting with a situation where you had a court order in place. It was sufficient because, of course, mom was earning, dad was earning. But now perhaps mom has been retrenched. She no longer has income, at all, and she needs more maintenance. And perhaps, she's aware that dad is a high income earner and he can afford to give a bit more. You then approach the court to have that order varied or maintenance increased. and you follow the procedure from there.
Okay. Ayesha, I think we're running out of time. The webinar is planned to be about 30 to 35 minutes. There's a lot of questions, but unfortunately it's difficult to read through these questions and pose it. We are having a webinar soon again, at least once a week on this topic. We will inform all the listeners as well on the details thereof. But are there any closing remarks you'd like to make regarding this issue concerning child maintenance difficulties and problems in South Africa?
Well, in closing, I would like to say that maintenance is a complex area. A lot of people think that it's simple. I think it's not as simple as we would like it to be. It is complex. I think the best thing to do for all parties concerned is to sit down around a table and have an open discussion about what is this child costing you. It's quite simple to prove expenses of the child. I mean, if the child is going to school, it's quite easy to establish what is the child's school fees. If the child is eating certain groceries, wearing certain clothes, it's quite easy to establish those. And then as well, for the parents to be open about what it is that they're earning, and the income that they're bringing. And if a matter can be resolved in that respect, that's what's best for the child, because court applications, whether you're bringing an application in high court or in the maintenance court, whether you like it or not, that has an impact on the child. I'm sorry, I am a mom, and I'm telling you, my kids, they're exposed to my life. So as much as you try to protect your children, if you're going through a very intense high court litigation, or if you're going through a really traumatic experience in maintenance court, that does filter down to the children. And the last thing you want is the children to start getting alienated or feel like they're a part of some sort of legal battle between parents. It's not in their best interest. And so parties should try at every stage of litigation to settle the matter as best as possible and come to some form of agreement. And then in closing, I'm going to say, even if you guys have come to an agreement between the two of you, please proceed to the maintenance court and have that order made an order of court, so that we're all clear, everything is set out, and both of you can sign and say, we've consented to this amount and we consent for the order to be taken in respect of, X amount of maintenance per month for the minor child.
Ayesha, thank you very much for that. If I may add my 2 cents, what I do not understand is, at some point the mom and the dad were in love with each other. They were, very amicable with each other. And now there's a child in the world and the child must be looked after. But now, unfortunately, because of the differences, they become, for lack of a better term, big enemies with each other. And nobody really benefits. They might have issues with each other, which they must resolve, but the child is in the middle, and the child is an innocent party, and he's the one that loses out. Ayesha, thank you for your time today, and we're looking forward to the next webinar, hopefully next week. And to all the viewers, and for those who joining our Zoom webinar on this specific topic, thank you for joining us, and we will send you a link, a notification later today where you can watch this video, and also notification of our future video that will be taking place next week. Thank you very much. Good day.